Welcome everybody to our offering this evening, Implementing AI in Active Learning Environments. It's from our series, An Article and an App. We're going to be talking about an article that hopefully some of you have read, maybe looked at. I'll be sharing it with you, so don't worry if you haven't. And then we'll be talking about how can AI be implemented into active learning. We know we want to be doing active learning, different activities with our students, getting them engaged. How is AI helpful in that? But before we get started, just a little bit of reading club etiquette. Now, this is a less formal space than many of the webinars that we offer at the Light Center. However, just to keep everything pleasant, we do ask that you mute your microphone until you are ready to talk. Please do use the chat box often. However, when it comes to speaking, do feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, whatever the case may be. We are recording for those of you who could, for those individuals who could not make it today, and the slides and this recording will be available in the PD2Go newsletter, as well as the links that I'm going to share with you today. As a reminder, this offering is a collaboration between the Light Center Professional Development Department and the Light Center Library Department, Digital Resources and Library Department. Our aim is to share at least one article and one app or more monthly in this engaging series as part of our 2024 professional development initiatives. Please, 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 I'll say it always at the beginning and I'll say it again at the end of our time together, complete the survey. Your feedback is so valuable to us. It really helps us to have offerings like this for you all. And we really appreciate your engagement, both with the survey and today. So let's jump right in. Who's here today? So if you don't know me, my name is Joni Mitchell. I'm the Professional Development Specialist over at the Professional Development Department Light Center. I started in August of last year. I'm coming up on a year here, but please feel free to unmute yourself. We have a nice group today, just about 10 of you in here. Let us know, or you can hop into the chat if you don't want to unmute. Your name, the college that you're in, and how long have you been with Westcliff? I see some familiar faces. I see some folks I don't know. So tell us.
I'm Kate Andrews, and I'm in the business college.
Wonderful to have you here. Tatiana said, happy Tuesday, everyone. Dr. Jody Constant said, happy Tuesday. Yes, happy Tuesday. We're still at the start of our week. Who else is here today?
I am Vlad Jenin, College of Business. Nice meeting you.
Great to have you.
Yeah, this is Syed Goraishi from College of Business.
Oh, great to have you, Dr. Goraishi.
Thank you.
I thought you dropped off. I was like, oh, where did he go? Professor Scobie from College of Education.
Hi, Johnny, everybody we've met before. I'm Tatiana Andriyanka Jenin, College of Education now, mainly, although I started with the College of Business and hope to continue with it, and also the Faculty Senate DI Committee Chair, and Jody's big friend and co-author in all her initiatives. Thank you very much for uniting us here with this fantastic initiative. I just cannot wait to hear what is there to be heard about AI and other interesting things.
Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful to have you here. Happy Taco Tuesday. Dr. Morgan, thank you for, yes, reminding everyone it is Taco Tuesday. If you have some time. Jinan, College of Business, wonderful to have you here. Welcome, welcome. Oh, did I hear another voice?
Said thank you and hello, everyone.
Hello. Fantastic. Well, let's dive right in. So I always like to pop up the article for you all. Here's the link for the article. If you didn't get a chance to read it, it's a really quick read. You can actually scan it over, and I'm just going to keep it really loose today. Any thoughts on the article or any themes or insights that came up for you when you were reading it?
Yeah, I had a whole bunch.
Tell us about it, Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, these two seem to have a lot of time in their hands. It's
Go
really
ahead.
interesting because they're from the education background. And what I mean by that, I don't mean that as a slam or negative, and you guys know me well enough for that. But it's that College of for instance, business has a different even culture to it, because most of the people that are in the College of Business, they work for a living. You know, they did jobs and so forth, and they're coming over here to teach. So their vocation, in a sense, transition. Most of those are in the College of Education. That is their vocation. So they have like, I don't think as much about teaching as I do my subjects. These two were interesting because they were. It was funny because they made a lot of comments about social media, because it was really the entry point was different, because even like they're talking about what was the purpose of social media. Well, face mash is what Facebook was initially called, and it was started to rank the looks of women at Harvard. So it wasn't, but there was no good thing that was coming from this. Was like, how could it be of social value to the world? That's how it started, and replaced MySpace, which, remember, where you had to rank your friends. I mean, it was a little bit convoluted in that. In fact, it was found it interesting because the college education, those who work like College of Education, work more in a echo chamber than in other colleges by far. And that's just not, I mean, in whether or not biology, whether it's agriculture, all of it, but college, I never, like, talked about Twitter a lot, and they talked about the discourse, and that's because they probably agreed with the discourse. I mean, they wouldn't even to take into account, for instance, why did Musk buy Twitter? And it was to change the discourse from what was there in Twitter. So it was, and whether or not you agree or disagree, then whatever, it's irrelevant. But it was, it definitely had a different narration to it. And if they were using that for class, that actually tells me more about them than the discourse itself. As it is, I mean, we've seen that. I question what was learning really going on in the social media, or is it more programming? Because really, even the way the algorithms work, you're going to get more of what it believes you should be watching. I mean, we know that. We know that that there's no. We saw this most prevalently in the AI world when Google came out with Gemini. All I had to do is put up give me an image of George Washington, and that told you the bias of the programmers involved in that. So it was social, and then really, I was just surprised they went to the social media part of it, because it is the haven for predators, and it is decreased critical thinking. I haven't read anything that shows me that social media has increased critical thinking. In fact, if anything, I would say decreased discourse, because it's heavy laden with programming bias, and in fact, I'm getting to the point now where there's always kind of business in college, but students don't even know. Like, I was at a UCLA thing a few months ago. They don't even know why they believe things anymore. They can't even have a conversation of it. We see them with the use of their vocabulary, and they don't even know what the words mean that they're using. And a lot of it is because of social media. And it's sad, because the news sources, more people are getting the news from social media, even though they know it's biased. It's the genesis of cancel culture. It's the genesis of the reduction of humor, which has always been a uniting part of it. And teachers, it's just like there's a lot. It seems like some of those are using AI as a crutch. And we, even at our school, we had administrators who openly said they wanted to replace professors with AI. So it's interesting. I mean, it was in the end, I would even look at it. Do you believe that students today are better educated than they were 50 years ago, 40 years ago? Take your time, or less? And why is that? I submit that they're less educated. They can't even hold conversations. Even the vernacular I use the example in class, I bring this up, that when they use the word feel, because number one, feeling is either a sense of touch or it's an emotion, but it's used as a way to dispel discourse. So if I say, Joni, I feel that you're a racist, you can't even respond. Well, it's what I feel, because I don't have to justify it. I don't have to prove anything. It's just what I feel. Isn't that what the discourse is today? It wasn't that way when I was younger, that you had to, in a sense, argue. We had good arguments to it. There was good argumentation, and I don't see it. I just don't see good arguments anymore. I'm not talking about people yelling at you. I mean, good argumentation. I just don't see it anymore.
How do we bring back
Sorry
the
for the
classic?
rant.
Okay, lots of good points. I want to chime in real quick. I don't know about that 40 or 50 years old, 50 years ago. I'm a little worried about that because I always tell the story of how my mother had textbooks, even from community college, that claimed that history books that claimed that the slaves in the fields were singing because they were happy to be there. So,
Well, just look at the test scores. Since the Department of Education started, test scores have declined since then, since 1970.
Right. No, we know.
So there's no doubt about the
right?
education has not gotten better despite all the technology.
That's a fair argument. Yeah. Okay. Just want to jump back up. I'm losing some comments here. Professor View said, after reading the article, my question is, will social media decrease as AI generative tools increase, especially for Generation X and young millennials? But lots of really good points there. I don't want to lose, how are we measuring learning? If we're thinking about active learning, that's something we want to think about. How are we teaching digital literacy and ethical digital literacy? And social media is a part of that, right? We know AI is a part of that, but social media is a part of that. And then I love the more or less educated question. Dr. Garashi, you had your hand up, I think.
No, just I had a question, so I got the answer.
Okay, no problem. Dr. Brodeen said, I think that social media and AI will adapt together and teenagers will adapt with it in terms of their use. I'm an old millennial and I'm using social media way, way, way less. Do you want to elaborate, Dr. Brodeen? Jump in here.
I think, okay, so I remember MySpace and I remember joining Facebook in 2009, which is kind of insane. And like I was active for a while, and then I think over the last several years, as I've gotten older, and a lot of like discussion over like putting your children's images on social media and stuff like this, which I fully admit I like heavily did since they were babies, but it's definitely waned like in the last 5 or 6 years. I think as discussions about ethics about that coming up, and like having individuals being able to determine their social media narrative, and like if you're putting images out there of them as children, they're not able to do that. I've just, and also it's waned because of that, and then also because of the algorithms that have started happening with Facebook a long time ago. Before you log in and you'd see like all the people on your feed, like all of their updates. And then when it started changing to where I only got the updates on my friends if I looked at their stuff regularly. And, as soon as I Google something, like, I don't know, for example, like hikes in the Pacific Northwest, like all of a sudden it's on Facebook. I'm like, nope, this is too much. I'm going to take a step back. But my teenager and I have a 16-year-old and I have a 20-year-old. They are adapting with it, depending on like moving from Snapchat to Instagram to TikTok and that kind of thing. I think they will just continue to, their use is just going to adapt as it adapts. I don't even know what my 7-year-old and my 11-year-old, like what that's going to look like. I have no freaking idea. We'll find out when we find out. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
No. I love that. Like, we're here to be long-winded. We're here to share ideas. So I love that. I think now that I have children, like I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, okay. And I'm very cautious of like images and 15 years ago, I was not thinking about it. I was just like, it was a cute thing to post stuff. Yeah. That's a good quote, Dr. Johnson, there in the chat. Sorry. Scobie, Professor. I'm sorry, because I'm struggling today. Professor Scobie, you have your hand up. I see you. Go ahead and unmute.
As I was reading the article, professor in the article, he referred to using Twitter as a sense of the community, and he used it as for those aha moments, for those sharing something that the students learned. And I saw a value in that because I'm thinking back to when I was a student, which wasn't too long ago. I just got my master's a while back. And how many times, and maybe some of you can relate to it too, how many times you read a research paper or you read a textbook and you're thinking, oh, this is an insight, this is so cool, I wish I can share this with someone in this moment. And I think there's a value to that. And this professor in this article used the social media to that advantage, the sense of community, this immediate response. Hey, this is my aha moment. Did anybody else have that aha moment? Can we get engaged? And this is, to me, as a professor, I see that as a value in active learning, in getting students engaged in the material that we are teaching, because they are getting immediate response from their peers, maybe even from their professor, or maybe from anyone else who is in that community, saying like, hey, this is my aha moment too. This is something that I've experienced, and this is engages everybody who is in that moment. So I see this as a plus in active learning, as a plus in engagement, because the community is sharing that experience, and that experience become a long-term learning because it associates with an emotion that is felt, and therefore the learning is deeper because it's experienced together on that sense of community, and then can be discussed in the classroom and can lead in the meaningful experience, and therefore a deeper learning.
That's good insight. I've actually had a professor who created like a LinkedIn group. And then like half the class wasn't on LinkedIn, so they had to get LinkedIn. But he was like, you're gonna need this, so get it. Even if you never use it, put your picture up there, or if you want, put your picture up there, put a picture of whatever you want up there, and put a few lines, and created a group and kind of did that sense of community outside of the classroom within a tool that he felt was useful. Right. I definitely think Dr. Johnson brings up some good points about like what, first of all, I never knew that Facebook used to be Face Mash. Raise your hand if you knew that detail. No clue. But it sounds about right. And I think that really, Tatiana's like me, I knew that. I think I want to know, like, does the form of social media matter? Like, I'll give you an example. When TikTok first came out, everybody asked me, including my students. I was doing a lot of in-person classes at the time. Oh, are you going to get on TikTok and send us TikTok videos? And I was like, no, that's not happening. Does that part matter? Does the kind of social media matter? Tatiana, your hand is up. Do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, yes. Just as you started talking about using social media for creating class engagement, I wanted to remark that stood out to me too. And really, you know, in fully online classes, that is, we don't have such classes at Westcliff, but at another university, I have classes where I never see my students and they never see each other. Having connect them through social media, giving them a possibility to introduce somehow, maybe to post some pictures, to at least see who is in class together with them. That's just an amazing possibility. But to me, that's more than engagement, because our communications today are to a great degree in social media and in different communication related courses. And I don't only include language courses here, but marketing courses, for example, consumer behavior courses. Social media may be probably more impactful than face-to-face communication. That is, it's just a tool. It's a tool that the students should be able to know, should be able to use. And if they are not using it, for example, I like the idea that the authors created a safe bubble. That is, they were probably teaching students the right strategies to present themselves and at the same time to maintain their communication so that they are somehow protected from any toxic behaviors or bullying or whatever may be poisoning our life in the media, because our life now partially is on social media. So to me, that is a part of communicative competence of today. And communicative competence goes beyond just face-to-face communication. It may be professional communications. Without social media, a person is not fully competent to do lots of jobs, like we needed to learn to read and write to learn some profession. Today, we need to learn to be proficient on social media for lots of professions. And by the way, to me, the same applies to AI. This is why I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion towards that way. But undoubtedly, this article has been very enriching and prompted lots of ideas. And I think we need to look for the ways to employ social media, not only as the way to build community, but also a part of the content in some courses. It's content related. It's very meaningful. Thank you, Joni, for suggesting that for discussion.
I love it. I wanted to make sure that, we've been talking about AI a lot, and to see that these educators and they, they're very much immersed in their work, and that's kind of what I liked about the article. But I also recognize, like, how does this translate to other spaces? Dr. Joseph said, in the context of marketing, we learn location, location, location. Where our students are spending the most of their time, social media. If we infiltrate social media, then we can effectively reach our students in a different form. Do you have any examples of that, Dr. Joseph? Anything you've tried that you want to share? Feel free to unmute.
I think for me, it's if I can vouch from a personal standpoint. I have two, well, one just turned 21, so she's not a teenage daughter anymore. And the other one will be 20. So one is preparing for, law school, and one is preparing for med school. And a lot of the conversation that we have around their preparation and what they're learning and how to prepare themselves and the do's and don'ts in our conversations, they always refer to those social media sites, right? We talk about the dangers and I use the term from my parents that says, chew the meat and spit out the bone, that sort of stuff. So I help them realize what to take as substance and what to take as, okay, somebody just saying something. But in my conversations with them, it just helped me realize the value of this platform, that they can utilize this to help, do better with themselves if they use it in the right form. One of the things that I always do in my classroom, and I've taught that for a long time, is you as an individual have to use social media strategically. And what I mean by that is, you're not going to see me post a picture of myself in a party. I'm not going to post a picture of myself, oh, I'm on the beach today, because my strategy for using social media is not to make it, quote unquote, that social event. That's not my life. But I want to use the platform as a means to promote things I feel that can get people educated, get them to think differently and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of brought that up, because I'm thinking of marketing. And we hear location, location, location is a strong aspect in marketing. The location aspect simply deals with, where are the people that we're trying to reach, the people that we're trying to make an impact into their life as educators, where are they? And if they're there on social media, our responsibility is to feed the information that we know and have to help enhance their life. And we have to be consistent in that as educators, and not just, and most of you guys have said this, that social media is a tool. AI is a tool. And if we're not using the tool effectively, then we're missing out on something. I'm not very young, I'm not very old, but I'm not very young. But I can't think at my age how I thought when I was 25, right? I have to think differently and act differently because my responsibility as an educator is to make the right deposit and make the right impact in people's lives. So this is kind of the thought I have when I think of social media. I know my kids use it effectively in certain instances for certain things that they want to accomplish. And then I want to be an instrument that filters that right information into those social media software or platforms so people can learn from that. I may not get as much traction as some, stupid video that will make people laugh, right? But the limited number of traction you get, it's making that deposit and that impact into the 10, 5, 15, 20 people that view your post or video article or whatever it is. So I think it's a great resource that we can utilize in every aspect of life. And if we have to incorporate that into our classrooms, then I think it's relevant for this time in 2024 because it's not going away. It's becoming more and more and more part of people's life, and we are people too. So that's becoming more part of our lives too, and we cannot negate the value that it can bring to that aspect.
Sorry. Thank you so much. I was saying I absolutely agree with a lot of what you're saying here. I love that you again, like as parents, we get to kind of look at, our kids and what stage of life they're in and think about like our students and, because I do notice that it is getting harder as I get older to connect with some of my students. I think it's an age thing. But I love what you said about chew the meat and spit out the bones, because that to me, we need that with media. We need that with social media. Like our students, like our next generation needs to understand how to do that, because there's so much. We obviously know, if you take 5 seconds to look at anything social media wise, so much garbage and so much toxicity on social media. The studies there's numerous, but how do we engage with views that aren't our own? How do we engage with content that makes us feel a certain way, or maybe really does like mess with us? How do we manage our time? I mean, these are all things that I feel in some ways we can certainly have impact with our students. I just want to scroll here up. I'm seeing lots in the chat. Dr. Brodeen said, I think the type of social media doesn't matter. The technology is going to continue changing. We have to keep up with how we connect with our students virtually. Remember, with courses we're being taught in Second Life. Hesitant to throw all effort into using any one specific tool with students for a class. I think that using a tool for one or a few assignments is doable, but we have to not put too much effort into it because we have to pivot into something new in a few months. That's very true. I think a willingness to be, is that what you're talking about, Dr. Brodeen? Kind of be current with the technology, explore the technology.
Yeah, exactly. And especially as we're teaching our students how to be flexible with the tools that they're using, like we're modeling that by not just like throwing all our eggs into one basket, you know what I mean? Like, and we can preface it by saying, like, things are changing so quickly, we're gonna explore what is hot right now, and for lack of a better term, because I'm in my mid-40s at this point, it's not the hot term that the kids are using now.
No idea what the current term is.
I don't even know. I don't even know what it is anymore. No, I don't even try. Like the lexicon changes so rapidly with like YouTube. Like it's like in a number of weeks. And that's another thing I'm completely fascinated by, is like an English instructor. Like it's wild how these terms, like from the slang, changes so quickly. But yeah, like not being versed enough to be able to use it to be able to model it for students and get their feet wet. But, okay, so I remember like Harvard was pretty innovative with using Second Life. And some of you may not even know what that is. It's like so antiquated at this point. But I teach classes for the Maricopa Community College District, which is the big community college district in Phoenix. And I remember when one of the community colleges, I think it was Glendale Community College, they actually had an entire Spanish class. in Second Life. Like it had built out this like market and town, and the students had to have an avatar and they had to go in. And it was all super innovative. But like a few years later, it was like, what is even Second Life? So all of this time and grant money and effort has been put into building this out and the instructor learning it and yada, yada, yada. And then it's like obsolete before you even know it. And I really think like ChatGPT and other generative AI has really shown me that doing something like that is a waste right now. Like it is absolutely a waste of my time and effort and my students. Like we can try a few things, but go in class about like AI and okay. For example, if I were teaching a composition class, like composition 1, and they're learning the basics of different essay genres. If I go gung-ho and redesign the entire class just around using that tool, like next semester, it's a waste of my time and it's a waste of students' time because now like we're starting from scratch and like what was the point of that, if that makes sense. And reading that article like reminded me of that. Like this stuff changes so quickly that we need to like be cognizant of our own time and cognitive load as faculty, and also reiterate that to our students. Like it's really important that everyone understands that. That's my soapbox.
That I think yeah, I a couple years ago took a contract. I was doing quite a bit of contract work for some course design stuff, and they wanted like a whole thing with like metaverse. And then that what happened to the metaverse, and that organization spent a ton of money trying to get like, oh, we're gonna get students ready because this is where it's headed. It wasn't where it was headed. Dr. Johnson said, it is not a tool, it is a medium. And as a medium, I've yet to read any article in which social media has increased critical thinking. Let's see here. Professor DeVito said, aren't there studies that confirm high social media use? Sorry, having some trouble with my chat here. Aren't there studies that confirm high social media use tends to depress young people? That's kind of what I was thinking about earlier with the whole images and what people see. And do we have a responsibilities in our classes to kind of like help our students become aware of that? Depending on what we're teaching, does it come up? I had a really great class from a professor who showed, you know, it was kind of like career prep. And so he was kind of showing how like, you know, like our sense of self that we're pulling from social media can impact. So I think there's a lot there that we can think about. Dr. Constant, I want to come down to your comment. It says AI needs to be thought of in terms of SAMR model and that you can relate it to TPAC. Can you unmute and tell us what you're talking about there?
Yeah, so I don't know how many professors might be familiar with the SAMR model when we're thinking about the use of technology. So the article referenced TPAC, and so TPAC is really, you know, thinking about what do we want students to know and do, and how do we know that they can do that. So we know the content that we want them to engage with and master and be able to internalize. And then we as teachers come up with the pedagogy or the andragogy ways to engage them, or the strategies that we're going to use to make sure that they get that information. And so then technology is one way in which TPAC allows us to have strategies to do that. But SAMR is a model where it says, first, we're going to substitute. So as we start to learn to integrate technology in new ways, maybe teaching students to technologies in new ways, AI might be something where we can say, hey, I can substitute this old way of doing something with AI, and it's that simple. And then we're going to augment. And so teach students to say, look, it's no longer about just doing the same thing in a different way. Now we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to learn a new way in which we're going to ask the questions? What does inquiry really look like? How do we get to ask the right questions to elicit the answers we want? And then we get to modification. Okay, we've practiced some query strategies. Now we're going to modify those. I know that when I use AI, sometimes I have to ask it 20 times and I dive deeper down, and that's my own efficacy in learning about query. And then eventually AI and what we're doing with our students can be redefined and it becomes a tool that we use. But let's not forget that a pencil is a tool and a pen is a tool. And so when we go back to what do we want students to know and be able to do, how are we going to know that we did it? If technology is what we want to utilize, is AI the right choice? Is social media the right choice? Right? And so it's all about the choices that we are intentionally making to ensure that students master the material. We really lead those discussions in that way. And when we approach our students in every single class, we need to get to a point where we're deliberate, right? If we want deliberate results, we need to have deliberate processes that we're employing to get them.
Love that.
Jody, what you have been saying reminded me of something my students are doing in language. There is M80 Soul classes. They are using AI to create a poem, for example, for the students to learn a specific sound. They are using AI to create a story for the students to use a specific tense. Why is it good? AI generally generates texts of the text existing in the space. That is, it is likely to produce the texts, the phrases that people typically use. And lots of language teachers are not native speakers. That is, they may be doubting whether they are using the phrase the right way or what is the right way to say it. And AI here, like an aggregate mind, will create a very trivial text for them, because that's what we need. AI does not create unique new ideas, but it creates trivial texts. And that's what we need for learning the languages. To me, it just unleashes creativity, but that is what students prompted. They have created a couple of amazing things to teach students just what we needed to teach them: a sound, a verbal tense, grammar phrase. But yes, you need to prompt them correctly until you receive the result that you want. So it's an amazing tool, and really, as any tool, it may be used for very different purposes. We just need to define our purpose and how the tool may become helpful.
Now, John, it sounds like you employed some of that like SAMR model. Like, first of all, teachers know how to grade. Now we're substituting it to do the same kind of grading, and right? But then we modified it to, it sounds like you're going through that model so that you really can almost redefine that tool and its use for them. But it's intentional in the way that you did that, not just, hey, let's go, everyone's going to use the AI, right? Like it was scaffolded and it was thought about. And, which then I think becomes a guardrail. So when we think about AI and AI use, we need to have those guardrails, because what comes in is ethics. What comes in is plagiarism. What comes in is this copy and paste. What comes in is all of our worst nightmares, that we no longer get original information. We no longer get critical thought. And, I think that was kind of the underlying tone here. They tried to talk about ethics a little bit in this article, but there were still some things like, really? Like, I question some of that. I appreciate that you did that research, you asked those questions, you tried to find out some of those answers, but like they didn't dive deep enough for me, or maybe I didn't like the answers they found, and so I want to find different ones. I'm not sure.
Right, exactly. For me, if you need to dive deep into the information, that's like AI can only prompt. You need to do the job yourself. It may probably remind you of something that you would have forgotten without it, but you definitely need to do the job for yourself. Yeah, to me, it works when you really need something very simple and very trivial and very often used, like a couple of sentences for the students, not try to invent it yourself, but find it where it is, and it is there. It is something that that is for language learners, it's a great resource, and in no way it means plagiarism, because we have been inventing different things to teach students by, and here we have an inventor working for us, so to say. So to me, that's a very good and absolutely legal use, because it's not substituting students' thoughts or what they are supposed to do. It just allows them to be more creative than they were before. Yeah, so I am for using AI, but ethically and to good causes. As you have said, any tool may be used differently.
Good discussion. So I did not know what TPAC was. So I'm just going to share something I came across when I was looking at, and then Dr. Constant, I just wanted a little bit more information on, is it Samir? How do you say that properly, please? Oh. Sorry, 1 second. Dr. Constant?
I'm curious.
I'm so
as to
sorry.
those-
I'm so sorry, Joni. I couldn't hear you.
I know, I just fixed my headset because I just realized that I was asking about the SAMR. I just want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
SAMR. It's the SAMR model.
SAMR.
So
SAMR model.
substitute,
Okay.
right? It's an acronym, right? Substitution,
Yes.
right? Augmentation, modification, redefinition.
So that second link there is a really good article from University of Calgary. The first one, I haven't read it fully, but I like how it breaks out those 4 levels that you're talking about. And it's just very, very simple, basic.
Yeah, and then Dr. Johnson, I'm sorry I talked over you.
What were you saying, Dr. Johnson?
I'm putting it in the chat.
Any other thoughts? I'm sorry I'm a little slow. My internet's a little bit slow. I'm a little bit slow this Tuesday. I think all of these are all really important kind of
Because when we think
aspects.
of learning, I hear a lot about, and especially we see discourses where they're trying to move away from objective to subjective, that everything's about what my experience is. And
That's what
my
I was gonna ask about
experience
next.
is so
Good.
much more. I mean, this is why we see like we see even the moving of language of like my truth, whereas truth, which is rooted in an objective term, not my experience, my understanding, my opinion. No, they wanted to change. They want to change entire discourses like this, and this is the genesis of it through social media, and is probably one of the more primary ones. And that people don't want to face them. Actively look for different types, different opinions. We see this with how people watch the news. Those who all it's doing is exacerbating it. I miss especially. The sad part is education used to be the one place you could argue, because some of the stuff you can't talk about at work, you can't talk about it at home, but it was always that place. And I think it's funny because I mentioned the humor before. It used to be that comedians loved college campuses because that was the place they try out new material and so forth, and they hated and now they hated the cruise ships. Now it's exactly the opposite. Comedians don't want to go to college campuses because they're too busy looking to be offended based on their social constructs that they've developed. I mean, the whole idea of safe spaces and warm puppies and cocoa because somebody might offend me in college, that's what you go to college for. You don't have a right not to be offended. And that's the idea. We get all these different ideas. So we can argue and have these good discussions, these arguments in there. But not anymore. Everybody better toe in line. Now they go to the comedians go to the cruise ships because the cruise ships were like, I can't offend anybody there. It was completely flipped on it, and that's why many of them just refuse to do that. I know that's anecdotal, but it does tell you a lot about what type of discourses are happening. And if you can't argue with your fellow students and argue with your teacher, then all you're doing is indoctrination. And that's what people are accusing education of today, and I can't disagree with that.
Professor DeVito said college used to be the arena of ideas exchange. So how do we change that? How do we create that in our classes? We're all educators. Is it no longer? You said used to be. Ooh. That's a little painful. Where are you, Dr. DeVito?
Well, I think what we've got to do is we've got to make it sexy again, I guess. We've got to allow the students an opportunity to understand that, regardless what they think or what their social justice bent is or whatever, welcome to college. Okay. This is an arena of ideas. This is an opportunity for all of us to express how we critically think about things. And we're not always going to be right. We're going to upset somebody, and somebody's going to have their feelings hurt. I tell this in week 1 in my classes. Once we finally get through all the housekeeping stuff, I say, well, now that we're getting ready to delve into this stuff, I'm just going to tell you, somebody's going to get offended. Somebody's going to get their feelings hurt because I have opinions, you have opinions, and based on how well we can justify or rationalize or, articulate those opinions, we'll see how it goes. So I want you to be ready for that. And right away, it's just the fun begins.
I love that. Yeah, I think we need to have those conversations more often with our students. I have actually been kind of know when the controversial stuff comes up. First of all, I teach in behavior and social sciences, so I teach a lot of sociology, social psychology, all of that. So if we're going to talk about something hot button like racism or sexism, we know it's coming, right? But then there'll be these times where it's wait, that offended you? Wait, what happened? What did I miss? Wait, when did that? Okay. And we have to have a conversation about it. We have to have a conversation about what does that look like? What does that look like in society? What does that look like down the road when you become a nurse or whatever future career my students are going to have? And what is that? You have that patient sitting across from you, or you're a salesperson or a marketing, you work in a big industry and you have somebody from that background across from you. Dr. Brody said, I've been experiencing pushbacks on some level since I started teaching 19 years ago. Nudes in art always offend someone teaching art history. Anybody watching the Olympics? Speaking of art, Dr. Johnson said, you do not have to have a constitutional right to be heard. And you do not have a constitutional right not to be offended. Dr. Constant said, think about the DEI statement. Yeah, that's the balance, right? We want the diversity, and we also want to be responsible with our students. I thought I heard somebody unmute. No. Thick skin. See, that one I can't say anymore. Thick skin. Yeah, I just threw that in there, the Olympics. I think that's one of the things, and again, this is back to what Dr. Constant was saying, whether or not you are introducing controversy or something comes up that turns out to be controversial, it's important to have those objectives in mind, right? And that's what I did like about this article. Did I agree with all of their aims and objectives? No, but I really liked that they were very clear on using the tools. I think there was a lot in there about, being intentional, whatever your intent is, being intentional with your use of technology. I think that they did emphasize a very student-centered design, which, we do want that. And, whether or not they did it how I would have done things, wasn't the issue, but I definitely felt and then of course, like many of you said, the collaboration aspect, community building in the classroom, using those tools, whatever it may be, to, bring your students together and bring learning alive. Dr. Johnson said, social media does not support this. It supports tribalism, victimization, along with cancel culture. Is there a way to use it that doesn't support that? Social media itself, sure. But I don't know. I'd be interested to hear if any of you have used social media in the classroom. We've heard some examples today, but
it was interesting because She wrote, by adding Twitter in the past, that one thing gave us fun interaction and I loved it. So again, it's more about, it was more about it, because there was nothing in it about learning. It was about entertainment. There was nothing about critical thinking. There was nothing about educating people in the article. Nothing. Nobody was better. And again, that's what it's been lacking on in these articles on social media, especially this one. I was like, wow, that's going back to you two had a lot of time in your hands to do this.
Wasn't there like a pedagogy of love, care, and hope? Sorry,
And note that they note it was interesting because they mentioned pedagogy, but not andragogy ever, which again, it goes on to that same notion.
Yeah, that's a long debate I've had with multiple faculty. Is there value? You know, a lot of times, even when you're looking at some of these tools, those of you who are looking into using tools in your class, whether it's AI-based, social media, whatever the case may be, whatever the activity may be, like a lot of times you will find all kinds of things for K through 12. And you're like, oh, does this work in college? And yet it does. Like I've had students who love to do Flipgrid. I think it's just called Flip now. And they just came out with some great AI integrations. You know, I think the ones that we posted here, oh yeah, looking at the Kahoot AI integration, if anybody had a chance. And then Conker was one. I've not used Conker, I'll be perfectly honest. It was one that came from a recommendation from another faculty member. But when I looked at the website, when I glanced at it, it looked a little bit like kind of K through 12. But I think that there's still application, especially if you are doing, you know, I hate to say, especially if you're teaching undergrad, but because I think that there's some fun, active learning things you can do in a grad level class as well. Oh, good. I have some links here. So many of the tools have, like Mentimeter is building out their AI integrations to create more active learning slides. And so again, thinking in terms of how you want to design active learning lessons and how you're using that in your class to get away from lecture and steer clear of that. I think it's important that we think about that. Dr. Broding said, Jody has taught me a lot with her K through 12 experience in terms of ways to engage college students. There's just a lot there. And I know sometimes professors are like, no, that's K through 12. Dr. Constant, you probably go through this sometimes. That's K through 12. That's not us, you know,
Well,
but.
So you would hear it though, like, so Joni, you would hear it, like if I went to a conference and it was really elementary school, let's say, and you had high school teachers there, they'd be like, oh, that's elementary. We can't do that. We're content. As Dr. Johnson was saying almost at the beginning, we're content teachers. So you'd have a high school biology or physics teacher be like, no, I'm the physics teacher, right? I'm the calculus teacher, right? That can't help me. So it's about having an open mind. And again, it's about saying, how could that strategy work for my students? And so do I have things that have worked with young students that can work with my doctoral students? I can do that. I can transition that, but I can see that like social media might be more engaging to my undergrad students than to my doctorate students. So perhaps I come up with an idea as a checking for understanding, as a ticket out the door. I want you to tweet me the number one takeaway today. And rather than actually going on X and tweeting me anything, because I don't do that, they can write it down. They can send it in an email. They can put it in the chat. They can give me a piece of paper and walk out the door, whatever that might look like. I mean, it's not actually tweeting me on a device, but they're still practicing. That might actually engage them. Oh, I get to tweet. It has to be 33 characters or whatever that limit is. I don't even know. I just know there's some
changed the limit.
limit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I
I haven't
don't
been on
even
for
know
a
what
while,
that
but I
is.
think they changed it.
But
Yeah,
I'm
that's great.
But I'm not going to ask my doctoral students, hey, as the ticket out the door today, tweet me. Like, I'm not going to do that. So again, I think that you have to kind of figure out what strategy it is, why you want to use it. To me, a deliberate process needs a deliberate, if you want a result, you have to be deliberate about the process you're going to get, right? Just like data. When I get data for the college and I need to make decisions around what it is I need to do, that data is a key piece to me being able to make decisions. And teachers need to use that formative data that comes in the class so they can make, you know, an engaging thing that they need to do next week, right?
That's good. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Professor Scobie, your hand is up. Please unmute.
I have an experience of bringing K through 12 experience into the corporate training world, and I can say from experience that it does absolutely work, and it is speaking their language. So if they are on the social media, you have to meet them in the middle. You don't have to rearrange the whole classes, but it's just like the professor before me had spoken about. Yes, it could be as simple as, you know, exit ticket or entrance ticket, you know, create that. Tell me about your reading, what is one takeaway, and create a tweet about it. And they don't necessarily have to go on a tweet platform, but they can create that sentence, or they can do, and it works. It absolutely does. And just asking them, how do you prefer to communicate? What platform do you prefer to use? Just asking them what is their preferences, it makes a huge difference. And then trying to meet them in the middle and incorporating what it is that they learn and how they prefer to learn, it does make a difference in the classroom. And it does bring from that K through 12 experience into the corporate world. And it is almost, I want to say almost the same thing, but it kind of is.
Yeah, I just posted in the chat, workshop attendees doing corporate training, badges, prizes, stickers, like you'd be amazed, like, you know, 3-day training, and like they have a whole book of stickers, you know, from activity. Dr. Garashi, please, do you have your hand up there?
Yes, actually, what I want to say, I think most of my colleagues, they mentioned that. So we are looking for the problem statement. So we want to know that what is the problem. So I think most of us, we mentioned some good things and bad things about AI, like any other product or any kind of service. Always there is a side effects. So there are some risks for AI for sure. So who is going to find out those risks and mitigate it? For example, us as an educator or professor, really we need something quickly to understand that what we have to do, because we need a standard. So if we are late, the education, Dr. Johnson and other colleagues mentioned, we are damaging the education, because right now I am grading the papers right now. And I see that the majority of the students are using AI. So that is there is no thinking anymore. They are not doing any effort to learn. So who is going to stop this quickly for the university? For example, for our university, we need some regulation quickly. So that's what I mean.
Yeah, and we do have some, you know, I always like to share. I know this comes up a lot for anybody who hasn't seen it. We had a really great webinar. You can find it there on Acorn from Dr. Crow on the current policy, but it's not ironclad, right? Because these things change all the time. There's shifts. Just learned a couple weeks ago that there's going to be some, you know, different versions of Turnitin with your AI percentage. Yeah, there is. You guys, yeah, that's right. Westcliff already has it. And so, you know, it's not hard and fast, right? And it's not like copying and pasting it from Wikipedia. And so, yeah, it's important I could not agree with you more that it's really important for us as educators to kind of at least have some awareness. I know we don't have a lot of time always. One other one that I was asked for earlier there is the webinar that we just did last week, Dr. Sarah Gray from our Writing Center. It was a really great series. The slides are there. The webinar is up. Please do check out. She talks about all these different uses for AI tools, and also, you know, prefaces it with a lot of practical steps, you know, to really help our students think about digital literacy. I realize I have a minute left. Let me finish this up. So we had a lot of these discussions. As a reminder, please complete our survey. Please, please, please complete our survey. It helps us to ask for money for projects like this, or to bring faculty together to support the Light Center, and also to provide you with the kind of gatherings, trainings, initiatives that will help you teach better here at Westcliff. So please do complete that survey. Any other final thoughts? You need ideas, email us at the Light Center. We're always happy to help you. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I know it's late in your day, or it might be early in your day, depending on where you are in the world. Really grateful, really great discussion. So wonderful to have you all. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye.
Thank you very, very much. We are blessed to have you.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you. Have a
too.
wonderful evening too.
You too. Bye now.